Gene is speaking next, and he's currently the treasurer of the AHC Foundation. Gene joined the AHCF board of directors in 2001 or 2011 and has previously served as the vice president and co-chair. Gene volunteers his time in honor of Kylie, who was diagnosed with AHC in 2003. Gene lives in Lake Zurich, Illinois with his wife, Kelly, and 2 children, Ryan and Kylie. Professionally, Gene is the finance vice president of the marketing store. Gene has been with our mission for nearly 16 years. He's a cool guy. He stands 6 feet tall and has recently been surpassed in height by his son, Ryan, a 6'1" student at the University of Wisconsin, which is perhaps another thorn in the side of a University of Illinois alumni. I've touched on much of what the AHC Foundation does on behalf of the community. Gene will be discussing much of how it gets done. Please welcome Gene Andrasco.
Thank you, Josh. I am going to share my screen now. Let me know when you can see it. I'm going to talk about a financial review, talk about our fundraising efforts in the past, what we've used that money for, and what our needs are going forward for research. So, as I mentioned, we're going to go through like the last 12 years of fundraising and research funding, and then how we're going to fundraise going forward. So over the last 12 years, we've had some success in fundraising, over $4.1 million. We've used that money to fund $3 million of research to find the causes and cures for our disorder. We've also provided financial support for our medical conferences in the US, Europe, and Japan that promote collaboration across the world for the researchers working to find a cure for AHC. We've funded family meetings like this one, where we bring families, doctors, and researchers together to discuss the latest and what's next in our research. We started the Family Grant Program a couple years ago that helped families to get to clinics, attend the family meetings, or pay for medications in emergency situations. And over this time, we've doubled our cash and investment reserves to help fund future research. And we've worked very hard to reduce our overhead costs and align our spending only on items that support our mission to end AHC. So let's take a look at the donations and the type of donations we received over the last 12 years. So this chart shows 9 major categories of donations that we've received. And the largest one in blue is called major donors or grants. And those are things that we get inconsistently from, sometimes they're foundations that give us grants, sometimes it is private donors. An example of this is the one we received this year from the Porch Creek Indian tribe, where they had the $100,000 matching. And we raised $100,000 in donations and they matched it. Those things are great, but they're not predictable. And they have helped us over the last 12 years, help fund the research we've done, but we need to do more on our end to build up these other buckets. I'm gonna talk about a couple of the different types of fundraising that we've done. So this gray box here is foundation events. These are done mainly through social media and email campaigns coordinated through the AHC board. In the past, so 2017 and 19, we did a year-end campaign where we blasted out on social media and emails that we were raising money at year-end, like a lot of charities do. Most recently, last year, we did the first virtual walk, which was very successful in raising over $130,000. And these events, as you see, what the foundation does coordinating is about $500,000 of our donations so far. All the other donation types come from families that do their own thing with our support. And those could be physical events like a walkathon, golf outings, or dinner events. Or they can be smaller events where sometimes people do a thing where they do a wear jeans to school day or wear jeans to work day, where people donate money in order to, wear jeans where normally they wouldn't. Or they do, they put a donation jar at a local restaurant, or, do a poker night, something like that. In addition, there are honorariums here. That is a more recent big donation thing that families have done, and that is more online. So we use a tool called Neon. It's a platform for fundraising, and families can set up a simple page on there that tells their story, shows a picture of their child, and there's a donate button on there, and people share that via email and social media and get donations that way. And I'll show later on, how to set one of those up, because it is probably the simplest way we have to raise money. And then another example I want to talk about is Warriors for Catherine. That is an event that is done in Josh's community. And this is where the last 3 years this event has gone on. They've just done the 4th one in late May. They've raised about $90,000 in the first 3 years, and which has been great. And it's the community around them that has helped them. The community around them has actually put this event on their behalf. So it is something, obviously, a family with special needs, as we all know, there's a lot of things you have to do, so you don't have a lot of spare time. And so the community around Josh's family helped them coordinate and did all the work. And so that's another way we can, raise money, is having people around us help in that effort. I want to talk about the research that we funded. So the over $3 million that we have funded. The research over the last 12 years, as Josh mentioned, we started out kind of broad. It's kind of, think of it like a funnel. So we didn't have a cause for this disorder 12 years ago. So we kind of had a broad net of research, just trying to find what is causing it. And we helped fund that research that did find the gene mutation that causes AHC. And once that happened, we could start narrowing down the focus of the research. Initially, we looked at what drug compounds that are already available and approved could potentially correct the effects of AHC. And you see, we tested almost 3,000 drug compounds and to see if anything would happen. Unfortunately, none of those had effect. And so we started focusing more on, okay, what is the structure of the gene, and what is the mutation itself, and how is it working, and how is it not working correctly. And through that process in 2018, there was actually a published report that showed direct evidence of the pump inside the gene that was malfunctioning. And it was the stem cells that our research had created actually were used to find that pump, which is a very important step in the research. Some of the learnings that we've had over the last 12 years are going to be used in the ongoing and the new research. So some of the things that have been done, we've developed ATP1A3 antibodies. We've developed stem cells, human stem cells, and we've created a database of AHC patients and the related genotype, phenotype, and clinical data, all of which will be used in the next phases of research. I highlighted a couple areas over here in green, and those are small pieces of what we've spent over the last couple of years, but this is the areas we are going to be focusing on going forward. So that is gene editing and gene replacement. And that goes to what Josh was talking about with replacing the engine in a car. So I'm going to talk more about that upcoming. But although we've only spent a small amount relative on these, upcoming is where the spending is going to be. So what does this mean for our future? So if you think about an iceberg is 10% out of the water and the rest is underwater. And that's really a metaphor for what we funded research-wise. So yes, we funded $3 million, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, we have, as I mentioned, we have focused our research on finding the genetic mutation that causes AHC, understanding the functional problems that are caused by that gene mutation, and testing drug compounds to find a cure. And then we've also developed mice models that we are using for testing. And we've started to work on cutting edge gene therapy treatments. And the future research will be focused on the gene replacement and gene editing. I want to talk now about those two research projects that are starting. So the gene replacement and gene editing projects are state of the art, and we are funding these in collaboration with Hope for Annabelle and Cure AHC, as well as assistance from international foundations that have contributed so far. We have, so far the money we have spent, I highlighted these two areas, these two slices. These are what we have committed to so far in gene replacement therapy. And this is development of mice that have AHC, and development of what's called a viral vector, which is a delivery method to get the gene replacement into the body. We are using an organization called Jackson Laboratories in Maine to do this work for us. So further fundraising is going to be needed, because once we are out of these phases and we prove success in the mice models, that's when the research takes up, kicks up a notch as far as cost. So the next phase would be doing toxicology studies, and that is to see, okay, we found that we were able to replace the gene, but what other side effects could happen happened in the mice? And we want to understand that before we go into human trials. Obviously, we want to understand all aspects of the research before we go to the next phase. And that's these are estimated costs, but it's a pretty costly piece. Then we have to go into production of the viral vectors in a quantity that is large enough for a human clinical trial. And the production of the vectors for use in humans obviously has a lot of, it's a lot more controlled, and there's a lot more things you have to do to make sure it's safe. And so it is very expensive to do that. It's estimated to be $2 million in development of the production for those viral vectors. And then we go into clinical trials, and that's testing on patients with AHC. In total, it's estimated at this point that it will be $4 million of spending of research to get to the clinical trial phase. Now, gene editing is another new one that we are working on. And at this point, we're at the beginning on this one, and we've got a contract with the Broad Institute at MIT and Harvard over the next 2 years to spend a little over $566,000. And the goal of this is to develop strategies to edit the mutation. So instead of replacing the mutated gene, this is to edit it and correct the gene so that normal function will happen. They're going, so this study over the next 2 years, they're going to develop the methodology to do this editing. They're going to use a viral vector similar to the method for gene replacement, but they're going to develop that and test it in mice. So these two genetic research projects are going on in parallel, and they're two different methodologies to correct the mutation. We're doing them both because it's unproven which one will work for us. And so we want to do them both at the same time. Whichever one works, then we'll proceed with. So this gene editing research is also at the very beginning. Once the process is proven in animal studies, just like the gene replacement, it will go into the next phases of toxicology, vector production, and clinical trial. Since we're so early in this stage, we don't have an estimate for what those costs will be, but we have to use the gene replacement trials as a proxy to say it could take $4 million for this as well. And these two projects are what is using some of the learnings that we have found over the last 12 years. So how do we fund this research? You know, a lot of money coming up. In this section, we call Daddy, did you find a cure? And I call it that because I hear this often from Kylie, my daughter. You know, after I get off an AHC call, she asks me, did you find a cure yet? Or when she's in an episode, she doesn't ask me, she tells me, she goes, you have to find a cure and do it faster. Yesterday, she said to me, so on Sunday, we're gonna have a cure, right? Because the meeting will be over. And I had to tell her no. I said that we are working on it. And the more we meet, the more we talk about it, and more fundraising we do, the closer we'll get to the cure. So as I mentioned, the fundraising needs are increasing. Over the last 6 years, we've averaged raising $400,000 a year. This is good for a small volunteer organization. It's kept up the pace with the research cost needs. As you see, the research costs are going to increase over the next several years. And so it requires us to do more to continue this essential research. In fundraising is always the elephant in the room. And I saw this picture and I thought it was very appropriate for our needs. So I want to start by saying that the engagement that we've had from families, particularly several of the new families over the last couple of years, has been very impressive. The virtual walk success and the increase in donations from online honorarium pages are examples of their engagement. You know, we need to keep this momentum going, and we need to recruit more families to join us on our mission to end AHC. And just for perspective, on the virtual walk that was last year, we raised over $130,000, which was great, and it blew away all expectations. We had about 35 families that participated. So they had, from participation could be, there was some families that helped organize it and spread the word. And then there's, you know, all the way down to donations were made in people's names. So up to 35 families were represented in that 130,000. However, 70% of the donations came from just 7 families. And it wasn't the networks around those families. Our AHC community in the US has about 400 families. So we're only scratching the surface of, you know, our fundraising potential. So this graphic, as I mentioned, you know, I found it very appropriate because over the years, I've talked to many families and even some current and former board members who've said it's difficult for them to ask people for help. So, you know, you look at this elephant, you got awkwardness, avoidance, denial, reluctance. And that's kind of a metaphor for when it comes to what people feel like when it comes to fundraising. It's very difficult to ask for help. I know this, I completely understand. Even though I've been involved in fundraising for this foundation for the past 15 or 16 years, I still find it difficult every time I have to go out and talk to somebody or talk to a company and try to get help with our fundraising efforts. I'm naturally introverted, so it takes a lot of energy for me to talk to people, and especially about something that, you know, when I'm asking for help. You know, the only thing harder for me than asking for help is to watch Kylie struggle every day. And so that is really what drives me past my discomfort. And that's what I want everybody to think about. You know, when they look at their child and they're struggling either in an episode, having paralysis, if they have a seizure, take that as your energy to get beyond your discomfort or your discomfort in asking for help. You know, as I mentioned, Kylie's asked me many times, you know, did you find a cure? And I can tell her, no, not yet, but we're on the right path because I know the fundraising we're doing, all the efforts are helping her. But I know that if I wasn't volunteering for this foundation and raising money, that I couldn't look her in the eye at all. So I want to give you an example of, you know, it doesn't take, you don't have to feel responsible for raising tens of thousands of dollars. And I know some people have said that to me, like, how do I, you know, you've had some fundraisers, they've raised 30,000. How do I do that? Well, you don't have to. Everybody doesn't have to do that. And I've got a couple of simple examples here. So when you communicate with your network of people, your friends, your family, your coworkers, to get donations, say you reach 25 people and each of them gives you $50. You've raised $1,250, which might not seem like a lot, but if all 400 families do that, we have $500,000. And using the information we have from our fundraising platform, it tells us that the average donation we receive is just over $100. So in that same network, if your 25 people gave you $100 towards the foundation, again, it wouldn't be a lot of money in total, 2,500, but if everybody did it, we have $1 million. And if we do that every year, we can help get towards our goal. And, as I mentioned earlier, over the last 6 years, we've raised 400,000 annually. Well, if each family just raises 2,500, we can get to $1 million annually. And that's where we need to be. We need to expand our reach, expand our network of families and getting donations. And it's not like you have to put on an event where you have to rent a hall or rent a park and do something grand like that. If you have the energy and have the time and have a support structure around you to do that, we encourage you to do that. And when we have people who have experience and we can help. Or you can, just do an online event and we can help you with that as well. So we have several board members and other families that have volunteered through the years that have organized fundraisers, whether it be walks, golf outings, dinner events, or virtual things like letter campaigns or online campaigns. We can provide guidance on how to do that. We also, if you're doing a physical event, we have templates that we can have you use to track donations and expenses. And we can even set up an event page on our platform to help you generate donations. An easy way to do that upcoming is our second virtual walk. It is set for October 3rd, and everyone's welcome to join. So as I mentioned last year, we had 35 families that participated. I like to see that go well over 100 this year. And all you have to do is contact us if you have questions on how to do that. Setting up a page on our platform is pretty easy. As I mentioned, we can help you. And here's an example. So we have a link that people can go to, and all you have to do is you put in the name of the fundraising page. You can put in your child's name, your family name, whatever you want to call it. You can upload a picture of your child, and you write a story. It doesn't have to be long. It just tells your story about what's going on with your child, the impact it has on your family, and that, hey, we've got this fundraiser going on. And when you do that, set this up, it creates a website link that you can share on social media and email to your network. And there's a link on there for the donate button that donates it to our cause in your name. And we found this to be very effective, both for the walk, the virtual walk, as well as just regular honorarium pages. It takes very little time to set up and little time to communicate. And going back to the discomfort of talking to people and asking for funds, sometimes it's easier to do it via social media than face to face. So that's another way we can, to help get around the discomfort of asking for help, is you can do it virtually. And we've had a lot of success using this type of platform. So I want to wrap up with the key takeaways. We've accomplished a lot over the last 12 years, and we've got a lot more to do. So raising $4 million for a foundation our size is impressive, and it takes the work of a lot of families to do that. We've been able to fund the research over $3 million, and we've increased available funds for more research. And as I mentioned, there's a lot more to go, a long way to go. But as I look back, 12 years ago, we were kind of blind. We had no idea what was causing this disorder or how we're going to fix it. Because of the work of the families and the foundations in raising funds and the researchers working on our behalf, at least now we know what caused it, and we have a path forward to find a cure. And now and that should be a rallying point for all the families. We have a vision, we have the research, and we have, the goals in place. I would like everybody to join us in raising money and helping us on our mission to end AHC.